Who's on?
Nobody.
Okay. We'll try it again. Okay, so good afternoon, everyone. Today's Monday, May 18th, 2020. Time is 1:05 p.m. This is I guess you might say, a special meeting. We're continuing our fiscal year 21 budget discussions and attending our Commissioners Duncan, Brooks, and Filios. Do we have any changes to the agenda? Hearing none. What I'm going to do is turn it over to our Auditor and Finance Manager, Dina Darrow. Go right ahead, please, Dina.
Thank you. So the clerk has deferred to me to kick off this meeting. So in front of you, you have 3 documents I left for you. We have a working agenda. My hope is that this won't take the whole time. We've tried to make things as brief and focused as possible. We're going to be looking at all 5 departments in the clerk's division and talking about specific asks. Also in front of you is the most recent preliminary summary that I sent you electronically, showing what your current budget deficit is, just for convenience. And then this last very colorful document gives you a preview to what's coming for the budget and budget meetings. You notice the top portion is now grayed out. That means that after today, all of the elected officials' meetings are complete. So congratulations. Our next meeting will be with Alliant, our benefits administrator, on Wednesday from 1 to 3 next week. And then on Friday, you granted us an hour strategy session to talk about deliberations. In the center, where I have in orange the two-hour blocks, I'm thinking that after this strategy session, we can probably reduce the number and reduce the time down to 1-hour blocks and hopefully be done sooner. So that's the hope, but that just gives you a visual. So I'm going to hand off to Michelle, who has prepared this presentation, and we also have our managers here to talk specifically to specific asks. So Michelle.
Hi, Michelle.
Hi. So we're going to start off with the 2021 clerk budget. And to start, I wanted to share this quote that I've always believed in local government from Chuck Fleischman. And it's at the local level a difference can be made. And the clerk is doing this through the budget process and departmental goals. To give you an overview of the entire clerk division, the divisional OpEx was down 1.38% from fiscal year 2020. And as evidenced in the graph, the clerk has reduced their budget every year since 2018. Next is the auditor. An investment in knowledge pays the best interest, from Benjamin Franklin. And with that in mind, the long-term strategy for the auditor's budget is to improve processes that will also improve efficiencies for other departments. Now is the time to embrace technology and share the knowledge, especially with so many systems reaching end of life. The recent business shutdown has highlighted areas where technology could be leveraged to improve processes and reduce the need for additional overhead. The Auditor's Department OpEx budget was held at 2%. The capital and new program budget requests were in line with the long-term goals of the department. We're requesting external auditors at $100,000 and ERP consultants at $50,000. The external auditors is an ongoing request. The benefit of an external audit would find potential opportunities to maintain compliance. It is an impartial audit and increases the chance of uncovering potential compliance risks. The current ERP system is approximately 14 years old, and other systems are available that would create efficiencies, improve processes, and potentially reduce the need for additional staff.
Yeah, please.
I've always heard it called as ERP. Dina, do you know offhand what it is?
Enterprise Resource Systems, and I will mention too that we're asking externally for internal audit services. We have not had an internal audit department for, 3 years now? And not only is it a risk mitigation for an organization our size, but it also uncovers efficiencies in processes and helps us to save money.
Okay, the next department is elections. Elections belong to the people. This quote really highlights how the county serves its citizens and how important it is that they are able to continue to serve the citizens. And that drives the capital expense or CapEx requests that are put forward for fiscal year 21. So the elections budget highlights for 2021, the OpEx budget was slightly less than the 2% that was originally allotted. 2021 is a major election year, and staffing will be critical to meet the demands. The department is asking for the $50,000 for temporary election workers. There are so many unknowns due to COVID, it can impact the amount of temporary employees that will be needed. The main goal of the department is to find efficiencies, and this is driving their capital expense requests. They're asking for 46 express votes, on-demand ballot printer, and a document counter. And I'm going to refer to you, Jennifer, to kind of go into these a little further.
So today we had Jolena talk to Secretary of State's office about a grant, I think it's the CARES grant, that we should be receiving and the match that's required. And with that match, we could be using the postage we are currently using right now for our absentee mail out for the May election. So they're looking at a $66,000 and change match to basically give us $167,000, which would be a total of the money, it would be $234,164. So I'm hoping this is something we can even utilize this year, or maybe we don't have to ask for it for fiscal year 21. So currently our grants team and then Julina is working with the Secretary of State to get more information to proceed forward. And with the express votes, we had talked about this, this asked before. We had 10, we asked for last year and received, and they're great because we can basically allow, it's a big auto mark device pin, and allows everyone to vote on this device, ADA compliant, which during these even year elections, when there's ever a federal election, we're required to have these in the polling locations. Right now we have the auto marks that weigh about 60 pounds. I checked with ES&S, and I think there's only 4 counties left, very small counties that have these auto marks, and they're very heavy, and the technology is very outdated, and they're not being really worked on anymore. So with this was to give us the ability, I think they're about 13 pounds for the poll workers to go and take these to the polling locations when they're required to have them for those federal elections. And then on to this. So many counties have this. We went down to Ada County, and 2 things we'll find. The next thing we'll find is the counter. And they have these machines where we have to order absentee ballots ahead of time, and we don't know what the turnout's going to be. So with this, it gives us the ability to have the actual PDF file from ES&S, and then I also checked with ES&S about it printing the stub number on there so we can keep track. We count every ballot when we issue it, once it's actually brought to our office, when it's issued, and then we count the remaining what's in the pack, so we're always constantly counting. So this will allow us to probably reduce the amount that we order and never run out of ballots on election day too. And this is the machine that we saw in January when we visit Ada County, and this allows us, again, when we get these ballots and we have to count, and then when we issue, we have to count what we issue and what's left in that pack. So every time we go to issue, we're constantly, we had Dina and a few of the auditors team yesterday helping us do this 7,300 mail out that we did this weekend. And it's a constant counting game, so it saves time and just labor costs and that alone. And you can also tab those. That's great for when we're going to open absentee ballots. That allows us to live audit as we go and tab 200 at a time, so we know exactly what we're running through the machine.
Any questions for Jennifer?
Keep going.
Next up is the recorder. There's no greater challenge and there is no greater honor than to be in public service. From Condoleezza Rice. This embodies the recorder's department and the staff's level of dedication and commitment to customer service. For their budget highlights for fiscal year 21, their OpEx budget is down 7.64% over FY2020. Anticipate that there will be little impact to the real estate market from COVID, and the Real ID Act will be in effect in October 2021, and they feel there will be an increase in passport revenue. People are applying for passports as opposed to the driver's license. Was there anything else you'd like to add to that, Melinda? Yeah, that covers it for her department. The next big department, and this one's really big, is district court clerks. So justice delayed is justice denied. And this quote is reflective of the needs of the district court clerks. It is important to keep this in mind as you work through the request for the budget. The OpEx budget was held at the 2% that was allotted for fiscal year 2020. The clerk is asking for additional staff in the district court that totals approximately $302,000 for fiscal year 21. They're asking for a position status change, which is about $16,000, a help desk coordinator for $64,000, 3 judicial assistants for $164,000, court services float, and there's a one-time expense for a potential retirement of $5,000. To kind of give you an overview for the last 5 years, but going back 10 years, there's been no change to the overall staffing within district court division, even though cases have continued to increase. The lack of staff has created an extreme burden on the court clerks. It wasn't until recently that there was an increase in positions. And this graph shows how staffing has fallen behind within the court. This gives you an overview of the caseload by year going back to 2018. That's when we converted to Odyssey in that department. So there's like a little bit of reporting discrepancies because of the conversion. The caseload has been increasing, and with staffing shortages, cases are delayed. And if you reflect on the earlier quote, this is justice denied. You have heard a similar message from both the public defender as well as from the prosecutor. District court is not increased in staff, even though the PA and the PD have increased. In 2018, there were 33,000 incoming cases, 39,000 closed. And in 2019, 34 incoming and 29 closed, 29,000. So far in 2020, there's 10,000 incoming and 9,000 closed. And because you know that court has kind of been shut down, it is anticipated that this will dramatically increase when court opens in November. This slide gives an overview of the positions requested. They're requesting a change to the community service collections clerk to a full-time position. Currently, this department has set up approximately 600 payment plans that started in the last 7 months. They've had over 50,000 accounts retrieved from Alliance and Signal One, which was the agency that was handling all the collections, and many of which have not been contacted in over several years. And the staff is right now sending out paper notifications one by one to see who wants to set up a payment plan in-house before going to a collection vendor.
Do you know if the revenue has a projected increase?
We have seen an increase in revenue.
So in 2021, substantially, you've accounted for the increased revenue in case you get this position full-time, which will be able to do more work.
Yeah.
So essentially, it's an offset.
I don't know that it would be fair to say it's a one-for-one offset, but it would go towards it. It just really depends on how much we can start processing through there, and right now you have 2.5 positions. The problem with that as well is they're handling the management and verification of probation terms and bonds agreements, so they're not solely focused on that because there's not enough staff to give, 100% focus, but they are focusing on getting the revenue in, so. And there's less going to collections, I think it would be fair to say, right? Yeah. So by changing the current position to full-time, it'll add another 15 hours a week in support of this department. The other request is for the Juvenile Justice Center for their float. Currently, there's 2 staff members in and out of court throughout each day. The bandwidth is further stressed to provide all the customer service needs to the judges, assistants, and families. Child protection and child emergency shelter cases have doubled in the last year. This added position will increase availability and efficiency of service to all stakeholders, including judges, outside related agencies, juveniles, and their families. The other position asked for is for the 3 judicial assistants. 2 magistrate judges are being hired by the state to start in September of 2020. They will each require a judicial assistant to process paperwork, provide customer service in person and on the phone to all parties, stakeholders, and also the clerk in court. Typically, this is filled by a float clerk. Unfortunately, due to lack of staff and the length of training, it is not possible to fill these positions with existing float clerk staff. It can take up to a year to get a float clerk fully trained. They need a third or an additional judicial assistant to provide specialized assistance to our district judges and their secretaries. Their workload is substantially laborious in comparison to that of the magistrate court. Their cases, while less in number, are voluminous in content and primarily made up of complicated felonies and civil disputes. This includes civil cases that have gone on for 20 years or more. Third parties have to often be hired just to account for and index the materials and exhibits involved. The last request is for the help desk coordinator. This would be a person that would support the entire court. It's a central computer and electronic equipment coordinator that will liaison with the Idaho Supreme Court IT department, Kootenai County IT department, and court staff. Currently, several employees fill this role, including the court service director, and that's really not the best use of her time, as well as some of the supervisors that are filling this role. Duties for this position would include maintenance, repair, installation, troubleshooting, replacement of software, network drives, court audio, visual equipment, and so on. With almost 70 clerks, 14 judges, law clerks, and court reporters, current staff is inundated with trying to fulfill these needs. Additionally, this person would manage the ever-changing fill-in forms in each courtroom available for the judges and clerks to use while in court. Was there anything, Callie or Marissa, that you want to add?
You stated it perfectly.
Okay. Any questions for them?
No, that was the help desk coordinator. Okay,
Yeah.
I'm looking at it here.
Yep.
Now, the loaded cost, 64,223, is that correct?
Yes.
Okay, got it, okay.
Okay. Last but certainly not least is county assistance. Did we go wrong way? All right. As you're aware, the state legislature recessed before making a decision on the Medicare expansion, so for now, it's business as usual. We anticipate in fiscal year 2022 that the county will have to pick up more of the burden. The OpEx budget for county assistance increased by approximately 13.76%, and this is due to increased healthcare costs. Demand and revenue are both down, but right now, since it's business as usual, the collections will continue as well as indigent burials. But right now, the future is unknown for this department. So Jennifer, was there anything you wanted to add?
No, we just notated as we changed the cremation rate, I believe it was 700, I think we're now to 1,200. So that's one of the increases that you'll see for that ask, just to cover that expense. And then again, we don't know, at this point, the counties aren't covering that portion of Medicaid expansion, but we don't know what the next fiscal year will bring after that.
The state is actually covering it this year, but there will be a large amount of money pushed down to the counties to cover for Medicaid expansion. And we don't, at this point in time, using the indigent fund dollars will not be allowed. So it's probably gonna come out of general fund. What county assistants still will be doing, regardless of where we wind up, is there's a lot of money to be collected, and I think you have another slide for that, don't you?
No.
Okay. Yeah. So there's a lot of money still on the books to be collected. So even if county assistance exists in a more compact form, there's still a lot of accounts to collect. So we will still have a county assistance department. It's still mandated, but it will be in a different form. But it will definitely have a collections arm to it. And in prior years, county assistance has used its fund balance built up by collections to pay for its operating expenses. So when we start talking about revenue and deliberations, we look at that.
So that was it. Any other questions or for the team out here?
Yeah, a question on county assistance. Okay, so it's actually more Medicaid expansion. So the state, my understanding is supposed to pick up the first year, is that correct?
Yes, they didn't pass any
What-
legislation, they just say how.
They never made a decision.
In other words, they haven't decided or they haven't allocated the,
Yeah, this fiscal year, my understanding, they didn't pass anything saying it's gonna come from the counties, so as of right now, yes.
so currently they're picking it up?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay,
100%.
This year.
okay.
And
All right.
typically, Fund 40, we've been covering, because we have the fund balance, that remaining that
Expansion does not equal county assistance, because most of the counties, quite honestly, don't have a fund balance in Fund 40.
Right, right. Okay. And, go ahead, Leslie.
You can finish. Mine's going back to
Okay,
courts.
so hopefully they're going to make a decision in this next session, beginning in January.
And there, I know Leslie was talking to Seth, right, IAC. Is there any conversation that they would allow that fund, or is it absolutely off the table?
As far as I know, there's no more talks. I mean, I haven't heard anything, what's going to come out forward.
Because that would be something probably, to see if they would consider, if counties have that fund balance, how can that be utilized for counties that do have that money, so we're not
Right.
necessarily,
Yeah.
filling.
So they were definitely talking about opening that up for other expenditures, but I think September, as long as the conference happens, we'll know what's presented then, more like that.
Just as a word on the collections, this year alone, there have been 8 people that have passed away that we have liens on properties. So we have to continue in that regard for the benefit of the taxpayer. We're going to collect for a long time.
Okay.
Okay.
I have a question about the judicial assistants. If there's no more court space, how are these judges going to have their own caseload? My understanding was that these 2 new magistrate judges were going to come and fill in for our current judges who don't get their 1 week of opinions, that time off. So is it possible that the first year that maybe we could do with 1 judicial assistant or 2 judicial assistants?
I'd have to talk to Carlene and find out, and Judge Christensen, and find out what the workload truly is expected of those judges, because I don't know.
Okay,
I was assuming they'd have a full load.
right.
Yeah, it's a real tough thing for us. Quite honestly, the judges want somebody, but yet we get to provide it, and we have almost no say in how it works.
And I've told them in the past that, okay, you might get your 2 new judges, but I have no money to fund the 5 positions that they were originally asking for to support their 2 judges. So, Callie, did you?
Yeah, go ahead.
So right now, the way that the magistrates work is they have 7-week rotation. Because we are getting so busy, and we didn't have extra judges come in earlier on, we've been having to use that open week as extra time to hear court hearings. So I think what
Right.
we're trying to do is actually find a way to build in like a 9-week rotation, so to say, but give back that week that they originally were told they could have. So I think they'll be filling in those additional hearings until their caseload gets built up enough to where they are full-time. So they'll still be being assigned cases from day 1. It'll just be filling in, giving more relief, so those others, resident judges can still have that week or even half a week what we used to have.
And when are they due to arrive? Is it October?
Actually, their fiscal
September.
year starts in July. So Carlene has slated to have them start, I think it's September 4th or September 14th, the week before the judicial conference.
Yeah, so what happens, my understanding is, August 5th, the selections will be, the interviews held, selections made, they'll start in September, go to the judicial conference, but they won't be really in their desks until late September.
I think it's the first week of September, because she was trying to have them in before the magistrates went to.
But they won't be hearing anything until after conference, right? Oh,
And it could be,
okay,
yeah, it would
Okay.
more so be covering for our everyday things we have to hear, like first appearances, shelters, things like that. Usually when we get senior judge coverage during those weeks.
So are
I
they,
think that's what she's trying to get coverage.
so are they sharing space at this point, or at that point?
Which judges? The new ones?
Yes.
I think she's trying to make those accommodations right now to have all her specialty court people start vacating to get those offices ready.
Okay.
so they'll have their own offices,
their
but
own.
they're not gonna have their own
They're
courtrooms.
not going to have their own courtrooms, right?
I believe the open week for the judges is where they can set last minute hearings, right, that need to be heard immediately, so that's what that gap is for.
Okay.
So what is Carlene planning for specialty court?
I don't know exactly where I know that she asked, last week I did speak to her, and she said she's requesting special funding from the state to try to rent a building for them, but she has not heard back on that. I think she had another meeting today, she said, with the state, but if not,
Bill, did you have any questions?
No.
Going back to the auditor requests, explain to me, we talked a little bit about it, I think, or I asked questions for Dina Michelle. The 100,000 versus the 50,000, is it possible that if we were to approve the 50,000 for the ERP consultant, that we could not need the 100,000 for next
Two
year?
different functions, isn't it?
It is, right, but
Sorry, Jim. There is some overlap a little bit in there in the sense that for the consultants for the ERP system, they would come in and look at processes and find ways that we could improve. As an external auditor would as well, where it would come in and highlight areas that would be of concern. So they're not a one-for-one.
right.
You know, but there is a little bit of overlap, so. The thing with the external auditors, they're gonna come in and look at compliance, they're gonna be looking at areas of risk, and it's an independent third party that has no skin in the game, so to speak. With the ERP system consultants, they're gonna come in and look at the whole overview of the county and find ways that we can make process improvement and identify solutions that would also, you know, fill that need of what the county has. So, but there's a little bit of overlap in there.
With the consultants, they would also make recommendations as to existing software, ERP systems that might be suitable for the county, but the two organizations we talked to said that neither of them are associated with any software companies, but they do this for governments, and they go in and they try to optimize what you already have as a first step, and then start making recommendations of what would work best going into the future. So we kept the 100,000 in as a placeholder just because we're concerned that we don't have an internal audit function. I think that if this is cut this year, what we would do is look at what it would cost to do it internally. Because we do have an employee who is getting her certification. She could be an audit manager, and with a staff person, they could do this internally, and it would be less than 100,000 a year, and it would also be an ongoing function that we could do. We could get a lot more out of it for less money because we could have ongoing projects. We wouldn't be limited to $100,000 a year of time for an external consultant. So, you know, we'll continue to ask for that internal audit function because we really do need it. But like Michelle said, the consultant, the 50,000 consultant helps solve some of both problems, but at least gives us an idea of where we are and what our options are technologically and where we are in compliance.
Would it be a benefit or maybe even a necessity to have the third-party audit before we started our own internal function, our own internal department?
Yeah, I think so. Because if you have a disinterested third party looking at your processes, then you know you have a completely agnostic view of things. And it's more accepted.
And the other thing is that if we have a disinterested third party, if our treasurer says, well, I don't want your team in there, I got nothing to say about it. But a disinterested third party says, what are you, can I come in to see you? It's a big difference. That's why we had an internal audit committee for a while, but it did not succeed.
So if you went externally, you would go out for bid?
We would.
And by the way, Steve would never say that to me.
Yeah.
Imply that.
Okay. Anything else? Bill, no? Leslie?
I think I'm good for now.
You've given us enough to digest, that's for sure. Okay, if there's nothing further, public comment? Hearing none, 1:35, meeting adjourned. Thank you, everyone.